On tonight's episode of Locked On Warriors, Kylen Mills and I are going to break down a thrilling, encapsulating All-Star game that was just, your hands are on the edge of your seats. You're along for the ride. So we got to recap that excitement, of course. And then we got to talk about the Warriors. They added Kevin Love and Pat Beverley. That's not true at all, actually. No, we'll talk about the buyout market, what's going on there. The list of names is dwindling. Kylen Mills and I will break all that down next. This is Locked On Warriors.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get podcasts. You can follow Kylen Mills on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok at Kylen Mills. You can follow me, Cyrus Saatsaz, on Twitter at DogSurf Roadshow. Kylen, let's just get this part of the show out of the way. The All-Star Game. I don't know what they're going to do with that thing. I think you might have mentioned some reference, some allegory to the Pro Bowl. It feels like it. What was your reaction to that mess?
It was horrible. I couldn't sit through the entire game, Cyrus. I mean, it was just boring to watch because the players are all out there just walking around. I'm sorry, but that is not entertaining. And that's what I tweeted. I'm like, this is not only bad basketball, it's just not interesting or fun to watch. And honestly, a lot of people tweeted back at me, and I think they're absolutely right. Steph Curry going off and actually trying to break a record last season in the NBA All-Star Game saved the freaking game. Because at this point, the players are not competing. They don't want to risk injury, which I understand, but they're walking. They're flat out walking. And, to me, that's just not fun. And the screenshot I tweeted out was funny. I'd seen it circulating a little bit on Twitter, and it's literally 8 of the 10 players just standing, just straight up standing. So I don't know. How do you change it? How do you fix it? Because to me, people aren't going to keep watching this. It was crap. And I got a lot of interesting answers I'd love to run by you. But I mean, what do you think they do, in your opinion, to try to fix the All-Star Game, or at least to make it entertaining in some regard?
Well, first of all, can you give me your feedback? I'd love to hear what some of the feedback was, or the reactions. What did some people say here?
So I mean, pretty much everyone's on the same page. I mean, as far as NBA fans thinking that the game was trash because the players don't try and they're walking, which I'm not going to say that I blame them, because they don't want to get injured in, mid to late February and then have to go back and try to finish out and close out a season. I get it. Why risk injury to play in a game like that ultimately means nothing? And to me, that's part of the problem. Okay, so one idea that a lot of people had, I mean, this is no shock, is go back to the East versus West, put something on the line, or go back to make it how the MLB All-Star Game is, and even have home court advantage be swayed by the All-Star Game. I think it's an interesting proposition. I mean, at least to add some incentive to the game. Some people were throwing out there, just change it to a 3v3 format and have it be a small ball, half court type of deal, and just divide it up into a bunch of 3v3 teams. I actually kind of think that's interesting.
I do too.
I wouldn't be opposed to seeing that big of a shakeup. Some people say just cancel it all together, just have it be an honorary award, but don't actually even bother playing a game. When it comes to the actual All-Stars, maybe play a Rising Stars game, still do some of the competitions, and maybe try to expand and build out the skills competitions. And I'd say those are probably the 3 most popular opinions. Some people even suggested having it be 1v1 competitions, which I think is hilarious. No NBA star is going to agree to that, because there'd be way too much pride on the line there. But I'm just saying, there were all kinds of different suggestions. And then some people said that it's the players' faults because they just don't play hard, and the players need to just get back into it and play harder. And if they showed up and at least tried a little bit, it would at least be a little bit entertaining. But my question is, how do you do that when there's literally no incentive? And that's why I kind of don't hate going back to an East to West Coast format, or having something on the line at least. I mean, what about a big donation to a charity of the winning team's choice? I mean, I don't know. There's got to be some type of additional incentive, because whatever's happening right now ain't working. Do you have any thoughts?
I mean, honestly, the 3-on-3 thing sounded the most intriguing to me, and just have a tournament, play each game, play to 21, playground rules, score, each basket counts as as 1 point, threes count as twos. I would love that. I'd love to see that. One-on-one is the ultimate dream scenario, but
That would be
like
cool.
you said, it would never happen. The players would never go for that. And plus, like, it'd be hard to do like a center versus a point guard. And I don't know. But the one idea I had, and while I bring this up, I want to show some love because I do another podcast with Rick Barry called The Rick Barry Show. Subscribe, please. It's on YouTube as well. It's Rick Barry's House is officially the name of the podcast. Go check that out. We did a new show today, and I brought that up with Rick Barry because he just completely ripped it, just like most other people did. And my one idea was, well, why don't you just make it like a big ticket type of prize purse where the winning team, like each player gets like 10 million, like something absurd, right? So they're absolutely incentivized. I don't care if you're LeBron James. If it's 10 million, you're going to be busting your ass to win that game. And then the one thing he said in response to that, which is true, is yes, the players would absolutely play hard. It would be entertaining. We'd all be hooked. But the owners wouldn't sign off on that because they would probably feel that the players would play hard as well. And they don't want their stars getting injured in this game. Right. And that's the other side of it, which I don't think any of us are really putting much thought into. But I don't think any of us want that to happen either, right? To have John Morant, for example, miss the rest of the season because he's playing hard out there. If Stephen Curry is out for the rest of the year. I mean, you just wouldn't want that, right? So it's an absolute conundrum because it's one of the most boring things on TV. I hate the fact that it's the only thing going on in sports, unless you like hockey. So yeah, it's just a travesty. But one thing too, I'm looking at all the chat. Hello, everyone. One thing too that was interesting though was the slam dunk contest. Mac McClung made things interesting because everyone else was, again, boring as you know what. Mac McClung, highly entertaining. He's not a big dude, by the way. Like, I don't know if you ever stood next to him, Kylen. Like, he is like, we're almost the same height. It feels like, even though he's listed as 6'2", I'm 5'10". When I'm standing next to him, it seems like he's like, we're the same height, but he's just an athletic freak. He the way he can get that amount of vertical is just insane. It's like Spud Webb, like almost. Only obviously he's not as short as Spud Webb. But did you get a chance to watch the slam dunk contest? Any thoughts on that?
I mean, I also think that Mac McClung made the freaking slam dunk contest that entire night. Like, dude, like what the skills competition? Like what was happening? There were like no skills in the skills competition. I thought that was kind of trash. The 3-point contest, I would love to see some of the heavy hitters back in that. Like, it was fine, but it was just whatever to me. It was very And I thought Mac McClung like saved that entire day. Like, I thought that he was the highlight. His dunks were insane, and the fact that he's doing it at that size. I mean, that's the other thing. I do think that automatically it's more impressive just because of his stature, like you mentioned. Like, he's 6'2", and he's got insane hops. He's super athletic. He's super physical, and those of us who watched the Warriors in Summer League already knew that, so it wasn't a huge shock to me, but I was excited to watch him play after seeing some of the dunks he pulled off in Summer League, and he didn't disappoint. So thanks to Mac McClung for making things interesting, or at least something interesting as a part of the All-Star weekend. I think you might be muted.
Absolutely. And in just a moment, I posted a tweet around that time that kind of caused a stir. I don't think it should have caused a stir, but it set up something that I think is going to be a great topic for the show when we come back in just a moment after we give some love to one of our very new sponsors, and that is Nissan. Oh, Kylen, we did not rehearse this. Nissan's most electric player of the week, which we are supposed to identify, is brought to you by the all-new, all-electric 2023 Nissan Ariya. So here's what I propose. I'm going to say the player of the week is actually Draymond Green, and I'll explain literally right now in just a moment why. So Barkley was one of the highlights, I think, of the All-Star weekend because he actually decided to get behind the microphone and do some broadcasting. And this was an interesting exchange, which we're also going to talk about. I was going to save this for the show, but I might as well save it for this ad read here. So here's Draymond Green mixing it up with Charles Barkley a little bit, or Barkley basically called the Warriors cooked, and Draymond didn't want to hear that.
This could be a year where you see a 6 or 7 seed in the finals, and it's not really that good.
But the Golden State Warriors are cooked.
That's crazy. You said that last year, but we all know you don't know what you're talking about.
I didn't say that last year. No, I did not say that last year.
You said it every year. You said it every year since I've been in the league.
That's not true. But y'all are cooked now.
Are we?
Yep, y'all are done.
It still leaves us 4 ahead of you, boss.
Yeah, I'm telling you, y'all are done.
I have a question without, let's say if Draymond wasn't here.
All right. So, and I definitely want to talk about that because I was not very stoked on Draymond kind of giving in so fast. He was like, well, if we are, I still got 4 more than you. It's like, no, don't. Where's the confidence? Where's the stick? Stick with the line, man. You're going to get number 5, but we'll talk about that. Is that fair, Kylen? That Draymond Green is our electric player of the week based on his broadcasting. What do you think? Is that the right call?
Yeah, I thought Draymond Green was just his commentary was one of the best parts of the day as well. Given that there wasn't a single Warriors player participating in any part of this entire All-Star weekend, I tweeted about that too, kind of complaining. I was sad. I'm sorry, but the Warriors are entertaining. Figure out a way to get them involved in one of those skills contests or something. Even if Steph is the only All-Star and he's injured, I still wanted to see someone else that I could root for, and there was nothing. And also, I think Jonathan Kuminga should have been in the Rising Stars game. That's another discussion for another day. But I did like Draymond Green's commentary, and I think it absolutely makes sense. He could be our player of the week. And by the way, I drive a Nissan Sentra, and it's my favorite car that I've ever had.
Oh, well,
so there's a little plug for our ad.
Yeah, absolutely. And the 2023 Nissan Ariya packs pinned to your seat power and premium intelligence all in one electric vehicle. The all-new, all-electric 2023 Nissan Ariya, the electric vehicle for people who love to drive. Shop now at nissanusa.com.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get podcasts. You can follow Kylen Mills on Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram at Kylen Mills. Follow me, Cyrus Saatsaz, on Twitter at DogSurf Roadshow. So Mac McClung wins a slam dunk contest. And Mac McClung, the reason why I knew his height and I met him was because he was there at Media Day along with the rest of the roster. And at the time, he was a training camp invite. He obviously did not move on, and he's been bouncing around in the G League for most of his career. But a week before the slam dunk contest, the Philadelphia 76ers signed him to a 2-way deal. And I tweeted out that I would have preferred the Warriors keeping Mac McClung instead of a certain you-know-who, and that started up a poo storm. And I want to make one thing very clear. I don't know if Mac McClung is a better player individually than Tai Jerome. My entire point of that tweet is the very role of the two-way player, which is an individual who is at the far end of the bench. They're not even among the 15 guaranteed deals. These are 2 additional individuals who can play up to 50 games for you. But ideally, the role of a two-way player is to be a bench guy, maybe playing some garbage time minutes, playing in the G League, developing, and maybe someday they're a future part of your team. This is ideally someone on the younger side, someone who's kind of raw and up-and-comer. And instead, the Warriors have 2 quote-unquote veterans, one taking 20 minutes a game in Anthony Lamb, one taking 17 minutes a game in Tai Jerome. I don't like it. I'm done with the Tai Jerome experiment. I think it's like far past time to move on. And that was my whole point. I would prefer Mac McClung because if Mac McClung was on this team, he's probably not getting 17 minutes. He's probably not getting 7 minutes. He's probably getting a big fat nothing burger when it comes to minutes. And that to me is what a two-way player is supposed to get. Not 17 minutes a game. That results in your team being 15 and 21 when that individual plays, which is the Warriors' record in games that Tai Jerome plays in. So I'm done with this whole Steve Kerr strategy of I'm going to stick it to you, Joe Lacob, and play these two-way guys because you didn't give me the veterans that I wanted. This I think is going to come to fruition in the offseason. But your thoughts on all that?
Okay, Cyrus, I love you, and I mean this in the nicest way possible, but that is not what you said in your tweet. You said that he would be a massive upgrade to Tai Jerome. So
yeah.
If your whole nuance was the fact that he would be a massive upgrade because he wouldn't play, that is like completely counterintuitive to your statement. So I just think that's hilarious because you're cracking me up that you're saying that he would be a massive upgrade because if he was a two-way player, Mac McClung was, he wouldn't play.
Correct. Yeah.
The Warriors have had to play their two-way players because they don't have depth. And also because Steve Kerr lacks trust in the young players and has not wanted to play them all season. I mean, so my issue is if it's Mac McClung and you're saying he wouldn't play, like who would play? I mean, to me, it seems like Steve Kerr does not trust the young guys. So he's been forced to turn to the two-way players. And I say force with quotations because, I mean, I feel like that's kind of how he talks about it and acts. Well, I'm going to turn to guys that I trust and have more experience. They're more, and he's like literally referred to both Lamb and Jerome as being experienced players, although they are two-way players with relatively limited NBA experience. They both played in the league a couple of years and have played on two-way contracts with NBA games, but still they're not like seasoned veterans. So it's just kind of funny to me when he looks at those two and points at the two ways as if like they're like super experienced players. But with that being said, as we've advocated all season, I would have liked to see the young players get more run and be able to work through mistakes. The problem is that the Warriors have been losing. They did not come out like they did last season on like a 20-game win streak. They came out at 500 and immediately I think that Kerr felt like his back was against the wall. He had to be in a win now mode, and that he felt like if the young guys were making mistakes, it could be detrimental to the team ultimately winning.
Yeah.
And so that's why I think he's been scared to play them. But as far as McClung being on the roster versus Tai Jerome, like to me, like neither of those two move the needle. Like it shouldn't come to that. It shouldn't come to two-way players taking on such a huge role.
Exactly.
I mean, regardless of which one it is, like I do not care. I will say, as far as the team making the decision on who to give the two-way contract, I get the choice of Tai Jerome because I do think he fits the system better right now. I was talking to my husband about this last night, and I'm not saying that I don't think McClung could be an NBA player. I'm not saying that I don't think he has the tools in his toolbox, but he has a lot more refining to do. And Tai Jerome has been in the league 2 years longer than McClung. He's played in 150 NBA games. McClung has played in 2 at this point. Yeah. And I think it's clear from what I watched anyway, just watching both of them, Jerome is a better passer. He's a better pass first point guard who I think fits better in the motion offense versus McClung was a score first guard. I mean, to me, no question. He was a lot of fun to watch because he could create, just impressive opportunities. And there were times where he distributed, but I just think he was a score first guard. And that's just not necessarily what the Warriors need or fits in great with their system. So I understand the choice of going with Jerome over McClung. But in the big picture, I don't think either of them should be moving the needle or making any type of impact on the Warriors' wins and loss categories in columns, because two-way players should and it's just crazy looking at the usage last season of like a Quindary Weatherspoon to this season and how much Tai Jerome and Anthony Lamb have played. And I think that, it should be a smaller role than it is right now, but the Warriors have been in this tough spot where they haven't been able to win. They haven't figured out the exact right combination of players. Kerr has felt like he doesn't have the margin for error to play the young guys, and that's left him with the two ways who do have slightly more experience, but at the same time, their skill sets are that two-way players. Like I think Tai Jerome and Anthony Lamb have played well for being two ways, but I think their role in general and the way the roster has been constructed shouldn't have been as big as it is. And I think when you look at championship teams, you don't see the two ways like dominating minutes the way they have on the Warriors.
I don't think you see two ways on any kind of roster. And that's one of my, in all honesty, is one of my biggest things why I'm opposed to Tai Jerome is I don't think you should have players with the type of experience Tai Jerome has. Like, for example, I feel like a lot of people are like pity him a little bit. Like because when I criticize like Jordan Poole, for example, I don't think people seem to care. For some reason, when I criticize Tai Jerome, I get like a lot of backlash. Folks, just so you know, in case you're throwing a pity party for Tai Jerome because he's a two-way player, he's still on a first-round pick contract. He's making $4.5 million this year. Players, coaches, with the moment you enter the pro sports landscape, you are open to criticism. These are not jobs that, like, if I attack him and for some reason, and this is totally a myth, like, I don't have influence, but let's say for the sake of argument, like, my words influence the Warriors, and they're like, yeah, Cyrus is right. We're going to cut Tai Jerome now. Like, Tai Jerome is not in a position where, like, I'm ruining his livelihood, ruining his life because I'm criticizing his position. He's living a dream, playing a pro sport, and part of what comes with that are schmoes like me criticizing him. That's just part of the game. If it's not me, it's going to be someone else. And so again, he's not like, I don't know. For some reason, people like get really sensitive about the Tai Jerome commentary, but they all sign up for this. The moment you decide you want to be a professional athlete, people like me come with the turf. I'm sorry. And so I don't get it, but I just don't think he should play anymore. I'm looking at every measurable. And I think where like myself and a lot of other people, there's a detachment is I think a lot of people, and I'm just guessing here, a lot of people, they see Tai Jerome and he passes the eye test. Like they see him and they're like, he fits. Like you said, he fits in the system, which by the way, I don't agree with at all. And the reason why I say that is because the Warriors won a championship last year without a player like him. They've rarely, if ever, had a player like him in any of these championships. He's comfortable to have in the sense that he is a great passer. He is a great ball handler. I love his floaters. I'll 100% give him that. But he's awful defensively. And he doesn't always make the smart decisions offensively. Like I see him, like, for example, missing very ill-opportune shots he should not be taking in the first place. I see him missing open players offensively. But again, his turnover number isn't that high. But the defensive side of things is where I take massive issue with Tai Jerome getting minutes. 17 minutes per game. That's a lot. And in all the research I've done, again, the Warriors are 15-21 when he plays. The Warriors' net rating this year as a team is plus 0.1. What that means is that the Warriors, per 100 possessions, are outscoring their opponents by 0.1 points per game. The margin of error is literally that thin. So you have to nitpick. You have to find things like this that maybe you can improve on. And I would bet my life on it that the Warriors, if Tai Jerome no longer plays any minutes, are a vastly superior team for the simple reason that defensively, he does not bring anything to the table. And this team has proven time and again, they don't need that type of point guard to win. It's actually kind of a detriment because again, on the defensive side, all teams got to do is switch and find Tai Jerome and they'll eat him alive. Like he can't stay in front of defenders or in front of ball handlers. So that's my Tai Jerome spiel. Do you want me to read an ad or do you want to respond first or do you want to move on? What do you think, Kylen?
No, go ahead with the ad. I have a couple quick comments to make.
Yeah.
Nothing crazy, but I feel like we better hit our 20-minute mark here.
All right, real quick. So we're going to talk first about Built Bar. I forgot who it was. Someone tweeted at me today. I got to find that because I know the folks at Built will love it. And they said that they finally bought some Built Bars. They tried it. They actually loved it for very good reason. It's covered in 100% milk chocolate. They've got some incredible flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, coconut almond. My favorite is the granola because it's a little less chewy. I love granola in general. And Built is doing something right when they're starting to be sold in major box change stores like Walmart, Sam's Club. Walmart's selling 4-bar boxes. Sam's Club is selling 13-bar boxes. And these things are relatively healthy. Only 130 calories per bar, only 4 grams of sugar per bar, and sugar is awful for you while packing 17 grams of protein. Go check out Built.com and buy yourself some Built Bars. They're yummy.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get podcasts. You can follow Kylen Mills on Instagram, TikTok, on Twitter, all at Kylen Mills. Her name, super easy. You can follow me on Twitter at DogSurfRoadshow. Kylen, your thoughts?
You're making me laugh because you're nitpicking on Tai Jerome's defense, Cyrus, but you said that McClung would be a massive upgrade, and his defense was also god-awful in Summer League. So part of the reason why I was laughing is that if you're going to point out defense, I also don't think then that McClung would be the right choice in that two-way spot.
No two-way person would be the right choice. That's my point. No two-way player would be the right choice. That is my entire point. None of them are. That's why I wanted McClung, is because Kerr would never play him in a million years. I digress. I'm sorry. Go on.
So, well, no, I get what you're saying, but then that's the bottom line, is that a two-way player shouldn't be in the role and being expected to play the minutes he's playing in Tai Jerome. It doesn't matter who it is. Then you could change out, the individuals, because you're saying, oh, well, I think he's not a good fit, blah, blah, blah. I think he is a good fit, but at the end of the day, they don't need him, and they should not have a two-way player taking on such a big role. And both the two-way players, Anthony Lamb's in the same boat. They have played big minutes this season for the Warriors. This has been beyond the contributions during this dynasty run that we've seen from both the Warriors two-way players, like throughout the last decade. I was like trying to look back and see who else they had at the bottom of the bench. And like, they have just far and beyond played more than typically what the Warriors have done with their two-way players at this point in the season. And most teams around the league, I mean, they're taking on a huge workload. That being said, I do disagree with you on Tai Jerome not making good decisions. I think he makes great decisions with the ball. That's one reason why I like him. I do think he's a good facilitator. He passes well. He's second on the team in assist to turnover ratio with a 4.6. And to me, that's because he makes smart decisions, not 100% of the time, but relatively low turnover point guard, which is, a huge value. And then, he knows the offense at this point and he runs it well or well enough to set teammates up without turning the ball over. So I think he's fine. And I think he's good for a two-way player, but I agree. I mean, I don't think the Warriors need him. I mean, he's only playing right now because Steph Curry's hurt. At the end of the day, he's a third string point guard. I mean, when Curry's not on the floor, they have Dante DiVincenzo who can run the floor, Jordan Poole who can run the floor, as an alternative option, even though I don't love him being the ball handler. You've got Draymond Green who can run the floor. And with the Warriors system, you don't even necessarily need like a floor general, like a very, very defined point guard. So for all those reasons, I am not advocating for the fact that like the Warriors need Tai Jerome, but I do think given the role that he's been given, he's played as well as he could play. Like, I think that being a two-way player, he has exceeded what you would expect of most two-way players, if that makes sense.
And again, I will come back with this. The Warriors at the 58 game mark of the season are 29-29. The huge difference between last year and this year are the 37 minutes per game given to these two-way guys. When you look at the differentials, Anthony Lamb is actually doing okay. Like, he's not a detriment to this team. Tai Jerome, the Warriors are 15-21 in games he plays in. Tai Jerome's net rating is minus 5.2. That means for every 100 possessions, they're outscored by 5.2 points per those 100 possessions. The only players worse than him are James Wiseman, who's not there, Patrick Baldwin Jr., a rookie, Ryan Rollins, a rookie. He's also tied with Moses Moody, but Moses Moody never plays. And I think this just comes down to some people see him and he passes the eye test. I see him and I don't think he belongs in the NBA. But again, that's just and when it comes to the eye test thing, we'll just have to agree to disagree. You're right. Assist to turnovers. That's why Kerr loves him. He doesn't turn the ball over, but he also doesn't do anything to make your team win. And that's what I'm looking for. When your team is trying to repeat as a world champion, when Stephen Curry is turning 35 and the years are running out to win him that fifth ring, giving Tai Jerome 17 minutes a game for a team that didn't need someone like him a year ago, it's just irresponsible. I don't get it. I just don't get it. And I look at the minutes, for example, like the last game, where in terms of where you can get the minutes to where Tai Jerome's stealing. Obviously, Moses Moody, I feel like could get more, right? Patrick Baldwin Jr. should get more. In fact, my guest tomorrow, hopefully, it's not confirmed yet, is Damon Bruce, who gets to interview Steve Kerr every week. And they got into it last week. And I can't wait for Damon to come on because Damon Bruce asked Steve Kerr why they let go of James Wiseman. And as you alluded to earlier, like Kerr said, well, it's a lack of experience. But then Damon followed up and was like, well, so is that how you're going to treat every rookie? Because no rookie that's coming in is going to have experience. Is Patrick Baldwin Jr. going to be forced out in 2 or 3 years? And supposedly he got a little testy. I can't wait for Damon Bruce to come on to her to talk about that. But even like a JaMychal Green, even Jonathan Kuminga, Dante DiVincenzo, who right now is averaging, I think, 24 minutes per game. Let me look at that real quick, just confirm. He's averaging 25 minutes per game this year. Give him 30. I guess my point is, like, I don't see why he needs to get minutes on the floor. And it's not translating to win, folks. If they were winning when he played, I would not be saying this stuff right now, but they're not winning. They're a 500 team. And just to finish up on my spiel, Retzel said, like, last month I was on the Tai and Lamb bandwagon. A lot changes in a month, where we're now well past 2/3 of the way through the season. There's only 24 games remaining, and they're 500. I mean, they got to get into the playoffs. They're not even in the playoffs yet. Like, this is kind of getting crazy, folks. I'm hitting a panic button a little bit here. I never thought I'd have to do that. So that's just my rationale. That's my thinking. And for anyone who says I'm a hater, again, I've never once said anything personal about him. I just don't think he should be playing 17 minutes a game. I think that's crazy. And if you think that's hate, we'll agree to disagree. I don't think that's hateful at all. But anyway, see, like right here, Jorge Rivers, like, I would look for another job, Cy. Why? You're disrespectful. You don't have to be critical. So you just rather, like, if a player is playing awful, I just shut my mouth. Yeah, that's why I should look for another job. No, I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing because that is actually what this job entails. So sorry, agree to disagree on that. Yeah, and we could happily move on from it. The hate is in your voice. Do I sound hateful, Kylen? Do I sound like a hater?
You don't sound hateful to me, but I do think your criticism of Tai is a little bit unfair. I mean, I know we're just talking about assist to turnover ratio. You said that he doesn't add anything else aside from the fact that Steve Kerr loves that he doesn't turn the ball over. A, taking care of the basketball in itself is a commodity. And B, when you look at he's averaging nearly 3 assists per game. His shooting numbers, 51, 41, 91. I mean, he shoots the ball well. He's not turning it over. He's assisting other people. I mean, I think that he isn't not doing anything. I don't think that's necessarily fair to say. But I do agree with your point that a two-way player doesn't need 17 minutes per game. It's 17 minutes a night. I agree with that. I totally get it. But moving on from that, I think this is a good way to kind of step into the next thing. The problem is if the Warriors aren't playing Tai Jerome and Anthony Lamb, who do they have left? And that's kind of where the buyout market comes in for me, because now James Wiseman is gone. Gary Payton II is still injured. I know you're advocating for more minutes for Moody. I'm totally on board with. PBJ would love to see him get some more experience, but at the end of the day, in big games, I don't think they can turn to him at this point. So that leaves us at who's left. And to me, the Warriors need to make a move. And I know we're going to talk a little bit about a couple of guys that we've both had our eyes on, Kevin Love and Pat Bev, who've moved on. And that, where does that leave us? So I guess, what are your thoughts on the latest action in the buyout market?
Here's what I'll say. The Pat Beverley news on one hand was obviously discouraging. And I'd like to just real quick add with this, I sound passionate about this because I actually do want the Warriors to win. And it's just bumming me that, that they're 500. They're a 500 team and they're supposed to be repeating as a world champion or look like a championship contender right now. So yeah, that part is it's bugging me, but that's why I seem passionate. The Pat Beverley thing, the good news about it, there's actually massively huge good news about it, which is they're trying like they actually, and I wanted to play the soundbite, by the way, because apparently Pat Beverley said this on his podcast, but they teased it on Twitter. The sound is not out yet, at least not from what I could find. But Pat Beverley, the fact that the Warriors tried to get him, dude, that was like music to my ears. That warmed my soul, because it showed me that the team is not just standing pat, delusionally thinking everything is fine, right? And by the way, Jorge, real quick, you're on timeout. I mean, you can express your opinion, but if you're going to flood the feed with just endless, speaking of hate, don't be a hypocrite either. So the Pat Beverley thing, again, just bummed that he's not coming. Encouraged they tried to get him. The Kevin Love thing, I mean, good for you. You're going to South Beach. You're at the end of your career. It's a bummer the Warriors didn't get him. So Serge Ibaka is still left. Again, I did an episode with Rick Barry earlier today. We talked about the buyout market a lot. We both love Serge Ibaka, even though he's on the other side of his career now at 33. And then Nerlens Noel's. I don't know who else. I mean, Dwight Howard, Kurt Porter. I wouldn't mind him at all. And I threw his name out there earlier in the season, but I don't mention him anymore because I don't think there's a chance in hell the Warriors will get him. If they would have signed him, they would have done it by now. Steve Kerr is clearly averse to bigs, and he's way too big. He doesn't bring much offensively. So I don't know. And Kelly Olynyk would be great if he's available. He's not available yet. Your thoughts, Kylen? That's all I could think of is Noel's and Serge Ibaka. That's all that's left. What do you think?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, you mentioned Dwight Howard. Someone mentioned in the chat as well, Boogie Cousins. We brought him up throughout the season. Apparently there's been, some reports out there that Bob Myers said he would never sign him again. I don't know exactly all the fleshed out details on that, but for whatever reason, that's just, not something that's in the cards for the Warriors. And pretty much, I mean, that leaves Serge Ibaka, who, like I said, I think is fine for being a role player, playing 8 to 10 minutes a night, who could just help with size in certain matchups and minutes when Looney and Draymond aren't on the floor. I don't think that's a terrible move. I also don't, I like Nerlens Noel. We don't really know what the situation is there. Kelly Olynyk also not confirmed as to what the, buyout situation is. So I guess we'll just have to see. But I do think it's very encouraging, the report from Pat Bev. He said it on his podcast that the Warriors were pursuing him. I mean, that tells me they're doing something, because a lot of people, including myself, have really kind of thought that the Warriors weren't going to make any moves because it's just not really the Warriors' identity and brand. The last couple of seasons have been to make any big moves, either A, at the trade deadline, or even B, in the buyout market. They're just not big, and Bob Myers hasn't been big on mid-season additions. So the fact that they're recognizing, hey, we need to add a couple more pieces, I think is a positive, and that they're willing to act on it. I would have been fine. Someone said, I saw someone in the chat say that both Pat Bev and that he would have been not a good choice or he would have been trash. And same thing with Nerlens Noel. I saw a couple people criticizing everyone who we've mentioned, but like, who else is left? Like,
There
if
isn't
you
much left.
drop a name in the chat who you think is realistic, who would help then, if you
like
know
Dario
you think that
Saric,
Kevin Love and all these guys are terrible choices. Now I know Kevin Love wouldn't have addressed the defending issues, but he's a stretch big who can still shoot the ball at this age, for goodness sakes, and he adds size, so it wouldn't hurt at this point. And then perimeter defense, Pat Bev makes perfect sense for that to me. And at this point, what else is left? I mean, my question is, who else is out there? And to me, it's very evident the Warriors still need one or two pieces. So like, they've got to do something to be able to be contenders. Like, I think they still need to add one or two, one if not two. So who else is out there? That's my question. A couple of people have mentioned Marquise Chris. And I do want to know what his situation is, because I do not know.
He's available. But again, he was. I don't know. I don't know. I feel like if the Warriors wanted him, they would have brought him back by now. They moved on. Usually when they move on, that's it. Not always the case, obviously, but I see Dario Saric of the Suns, who I don't think has been bought out yet. I could be mistaken on that. No, Jacob Evans III is not going to be part of it. He was actually on Santa Cruz. You know, Bruce Morrow mentions Tyreke Evans. I don't think that's entirely out of the realm of reality. Just because he's a former client of Bob Myers. The Warriors flirted with him last year. You know, so you never know. That wouldn't shock me, but my guess at this point, if the Warriors are not going to get Serge Ibaka or like a Nerlens Noel, and I don't even think Noel's would ever be an option, just because something tells me if Kerr is going to want someone, they're going to be able to at least shoot and give you some sort of offensive contributions, and Noel's would not do that. At least Serge Ibaka can hit that corner three.
Yeah.
So, and then, Ultimate Warriors writes Kenneth Farid, which is actually an interesting name because he was another training camp invite. I love the Manimal when he was in his prime. And I've heard he's tried to come back. I just wouldn't count on it. Again, I don't know if he's versatile enough for the Warriors' taste. Alex Len is another one, kind of a stiff, kind of a meh. I don't know. I feel like if the Warriors are going to add someone, it's got to be someone that kind of opens your eyes a little bit, right? So, yeah. Lloyd, you're right. Kerr hates big men. I asked Rick Barry that today. I'm like, have you ever seen another coach in all your years? I mean, he's 78 years old, Hall of Famer, one of the top 50, in my opinion, one of the top 25 all-time players. I was like, have you ever seen anyone, another coach, have like this kind of, like averse attitude and behavior toward bigs? He couldn't think of it. This whole thing tripped him out. I will say this. I said this on last week. I think I was solo when I said this, and I'll repeat it because I don't think this is like something out of left field. I don't think this is necessarily a wild take. And Kylen, before we go, I would love your reaction to this. Everyone's talking about Bob Myers' contract being up at the end of this year, right? Which is unusual. It's weird. We also heard that soundbite of Myers being pointed towards Steve Kerr, not by name, but I mean, there was very little subtleness to his criticism of Kerr not playing bigger players, the team needing to be careful for the money they spend in case the coach won't play the buyout player they get. But what no one talks about is that Steve Kerr is going to be a lame duck coach next year, right? And those don't exist in the NBA. When a coach enters the lame duck part of his career, either he's gone or they give him an extension. So, and I brought this up with Rick, and I'd love to know your thoughts. Like, the Warriors have wanted Brent Barry for years. And I asked Rick, I'm like, is that out of the realm of reality that the Warriors would move on from Steve Kerr after the season and replace him with Brent Barry, someone who interviewed for the assistant GM position for Bob Myers? And he said he's going to talk to Brent, but at the same time, he'll never reveal what Brent tells him publicly, which is kind of funny. Your thoughts on all that? All I'm saying is I don't think it would be a shock if next year the Warriors had a new head coach. Your thoughts?
I also think it's very possible. I just think a lot is up in the air right now with the Warriors' future, with both Bob Myers' contract being up and there being no clear indication as to which direction that's going to go. And I think that Kerr and Bob Myers are going to be closely tied together. Like if I think Bob Myers goes, I think that's going to increase the chance that we're also going to see Steve Kerr go. Although, I mean, I know there's speculation that those two have not seen eye to eye. I just feel like it would kind of signify the end of what this dynasty has been for the Warriors in the way it has been in regards to the relationships in the front office, who's in charge, and then the personnel. So to me, like, I don't know, it could go either way. I totally agree and get what you're saying, that Kerr could be gone and they could maybe be looking to bring in his successor already. I mean, it's possible. I personally think the Warriors need to try to preserve the dynasty, Bob Myers and Steve Kerr, keep them around a little bit longer and see if you can run this thing back, even if this season doesn't pan out exactly the way you want it to. I don't know. I think when you've got a good thing, don't throw it away so quickly. That's just my personal opinion, but I think it's very possible we could see both Bob Myers and Steve Kerr go and,
Very true.
Be under a totally different regime next season. I think it's possible. Absolutely.
Yeah. And to Darius Lee and everyone else who's saying how quickly people turn on Kerr, like, again, I don't think, and Kylen, I'm guessing I speak on your behalf, we're not calling for his head. Like, I'm not sitting here saying, yes, fire him. Furthest from the truth. I'm just sitting here telling you, like, this season has been very off. Kerr has been making some questionable decisions, which may be because of some sort of behind the scenes, like, little psychological warfare he's doing with Lacob, which is why these two-way players are playing. And there is a possibility maybe it's Kerr who moves on after this year, right? I mean, there's also a very strong possibility that the team tells Kerr, yeah, we don't know if we want to give you an extension. If that happens, Kerr's gone. Like, Kerr is not going to stick around. Like, his pride is way too big to just see what happens on an expiring deal. So I'm not advocating for that at all. Please don't interpret that as such. I'm just trying to read the room. And right now this room is messy. I feel like people are in different corners talking smack about each other. Who knows what's going on, but something is clearly amiss. We'll see what happens. At least we have a lot of stuff to talk about on the show, Kylen, so that's good.
Lots of stuff to talk about, even on the All-Star break. No shortage of topics, but we'll run it back on Friday. I know you're expecting to have that big show tomorrow, so I'm excited to see what happens and see the Warriors get back in action, and who knows, maybe they'll add a couple new pieces. I'm going to stay positive and stay hopeful.
Absolutely. All right, folks. Thank you so much, as always, for tuning in. We'll be back at it. Kylen, I guess you'll be back at it with me on Friday. Hopefully Damon Bruce will join me tomorrow. Again, I'm really curious to hear what Damon has to say, because he's one of the only individuals who talks to Kerr as a media member extendedly. Like, it isn't just like one quick question at a press conference. So we'll hopefully have that and a whole week of interesting content to come. Thank you, everyone. Kylen, love you. Thank you again. Are we done? We out? Okay, bye. Peace. Later.